You are listening to Mushing on First Paw Media. Visit our website at mushing.com.
3, 2, 1. Hello and welcome, everybody. This is Robert, and I am here tonight with my co-host Michelle and Rone, and we are covering the 2025 Iditarod here on the Burled Arch podcast. This is typically our final show of the race, and I am excited to be here with my two compadres here. Rone, how's it going in your neck of the woods?
It's going great. We got another little bit of snow, so it's like the return of winter up here. I think this last week we've had more snow than we've had all year up to this point.
Yeah, it's been very interesting. We got a light dusting here as well. Michelle, what's happening over here?
Hey, I had a great time with you today doing our photo shoot to do updated photos for our websites. And I am looking forward to it snowing all evening. Fingers and toes crossed.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Might have to dust off the sled and get out there with the team and hit the trails a couple of times. So let's jump into this, guys. If you are a Iditarod insider, you're probably watching the Finishers Banquet right now. It's been going on since about 5 o'clock. And as we speak, they're doing some Eskimo dancing from St. Lawrence Island. That is, I believe, right off the coast of Nome away. So that is what's going on. The typical breakdown is they'll do a bunch of this lead up stuff while everybody eats dinner, and then they will go down and do all of the mushers talks and all that, which is where we're going to turn it over here to Rone in just a second. So right now we have 3 mushers left on the trail. We have Dane Baker, who is about 43 miles out at recording. Eb Peterson is 45 miles out, and Jenny Rodewig is 79 miles out. And remember, 79 miles is just a little bit past White Mountain, so she has to do her 8-hour stop there and then do that run in on the last 70-odd miles. So she will be in sometime probably late tomorrow night. It looks like Dane and Eb will be in sometime late this morning. Iditarod did announce they are going to do a second banquet for these guys, probably on Tuesday, I assume. So that is good for them. We talked a little bit about that last night with they have to be present according to the rules in order to accept their prize winning. Interestingly enough, Connor McMahon was the 20th musher in to Nome, and he is the last paid out position of this year's race. So we have 3 quote unquote not in the money, but still get a $2,000 check. And remember, the Red Lantern winner last year got a $2,000 check, and it firmly looks like Jenny has that unless something goes pretty wrong in terms of weather with either Dane or Eb. Other than that, everybody is in. And the way that this works, typically, this is our closing show. We give what we think have been our favorite or most interesting stories of Iditarod. Each one of us will go on our own and then give some time to comment on those to each of us. We'll talk about what is next. We alluded to that a little bit last night. Then I have some questions that I'm going to ask you guys, and I will answer them as well. And then we'll figure out how in the world people can follow Rone and his crew up there at Susitna Sled Dog Adventures, and we'll talk about how you can follow us here as well. So let's jump on over to Rone. Rone, you have been a participant of this banquet, and in all of these years, I have never attended the Finishers Banquet. So I'm not sure of the lay of the land because I do not typically sit and watch it on the live stream. Can you give us an idea of what it's like and how does it run down once the mushers start in comparison to how they do the ceremonial, where you guys pretty much just pick the starting position and then give a thanks or two, then walk off the stage? So how is it set up, and then how is it different?
Yeah, so the Finishers Banquet is held in, I believe it's the Nome Community Center. I'm not sure what the the building is called, but it's like a multi-purpose building. You know, they have a big gymnasium, bleachers, and stuff like that that fold away. And I remember growing up as a kid, just climbing around the bleachers, and in general, just being a little menace and running around here and there with all the other musher kids. But basically, it's a place where everybody gathers, and they kind of beforehand they're kind of just people are hanging out, swapping stories from the trail, and when they start the presenting the awards and all of that, they basically just call the mushers up, and I think they go in reverse order. The last finishing teams first, and then everybody generally gets up there, gives maybe a story from the trail. Generally will be thanking their supporters, their loved ones, and sponsors, and just talking about their year on the trail, maybe sharing some funny stories or sharing some of the things, some of their challenges that they had on the trail. And every now and then certain mushers might sing a song. That's happened. I know Jim Lanier him and his family would do a little song as well, that I think he would come up with a song while he was running down the trail, and then they'd sing it. So it's basically just there's definitely a lot more time for the mushers to really talk and maybe present. But there's some mushers that go up there, so they say thanks and they had a great race, and then hop off the stage and go on to the next musher. I don't know if it's an award that they're giving this year, but I know they have had an award in previous years by Northern Air Cargo. That's kind of a cool one, where after the mushers are done, they will go off the stage, and there's like some promotional stuff that they sign. But the mushers get a key out of they basically grab a key out of a jar, and then they try to start a four-wheeler, and whoever gets the right key wins a four-wheeler. So it's something that everybody gets a chance to win. But I'm not sure if that's an award this year or not, but it's kind of a fun one. That after you give your speech, you can go try to start the four-wheeler, and if you get the right key, you get it.
Yes, they are doing that. They talked, I believe, about that at the ceremonial start, and if not, they've definitely talked about it on the Facebook page. So a couple of questions for you here. First off, there's a couple of special things that you guys are getting when you go up there to receive your award, whether it be a check and whatnot. So the first one is, I have seen a lot of mushers have the silver cups, the trophies. How far down do those go? And the question is, typically we'll have your name and your finishing number or your finishing time and all that. When is that done? Is that done today, or do you have to wait for that and then they send it to you later?
Yeah, that's presented to you at the banquet. So I think the trophies, the cups go out to the top 20, but I'm not sure what they're doing currently. But I know at least I have one from 18th place, so I know they go that far down. So I'm assuming 20. And then the other awards, the sportsmanship, the humanitarian, those ones are presented there as well. And I mean they have them all on a shelf, so I think you can pick them up after the banquet's done, right before you go catch the flight. But the championship trophy is rather large and quite heavy, so I think that one they'll help you out by helping get it shipped back to your home base, because it's a big old bronze statue. But yeah, you get your awards and you get your check, and I think they give you your vet book and kind of some other stuff from the trail. After you get off the stage, they'll give you a little packet.
And I'm going to talk to you guys. I'm going to talk to you about those other things here in just a second. But the championship trophy, we all know that your dad has a couple of those. Does he get a full size trophy like you see at the headquarters, or is it a smaller version?
I think the one that they have at Iditarod headquarters is larger. I think I'm not sure though it's like.
It's quite big. I mean, it would be as big as like a coffee table.
2.5 feet. Yeah, I don't think it's quite that big. It's fairly large, but it's not. Yeah, I don't think it's much bigger than like 2 foot by 2 foot.
Okay. And the next question is when do you get the patch? And do you get a patch every time, or is it a one and done?
Yeah, you get a Iditarod official finishers patch when each time that you finish. So it's a big kind of triangular shaped patch with the state of Alaska, the race route, anchors to Nome, all that stuff. So you can put it on your sled or your parka or something like that.
And now let's talk.
And then,
Go ahead, Rone.
I was gonna say, also all the rookies finishing their first Iditarod receive the Iditarod official finisher belt buckle.
Yes, that's what I was going to ask.
That's a cool one.
Yes,
I've got mine on today, so it's a pretty nice one. Just bronze belt buckle. It says 1,049 miles. So I don't know if they have a custom one for this year's race. Maybe they should make one. Fairbanks to Nome, 1,100 miles, but yeah, it's a pretty cool keepsake, and it's got the year that you finished stamped in the belt buckle. So it's kind of that's a pretty cool keepsake.
Yes, so that was my next question. So we all know that is the coveted belt buckle. That's what a lot of folks are really interested in getting, and like you said, a lot of people will wear that forever. I mean, I've seen guys that have run Iditarod 20 or 30 years ago still wear that belt buckle. So that's kind of a definite commemorative piece. And it's my understanding, and I'm sure you would know much more than me, but you only get one. It's my understanding that a few years ago, Dee Dee Genreau's house burned down during either the sockeye fire or one of the other ones that they had here. And she could not find it, or it was destroyed, and they gave her another one, which my understanding, that was quite the exception. Do you have any idea on that?
I don't. I know that I'm pretty sure you only get one, so that's really. I guess some people have two. The folks that did the Gold Rush loop, so that was the 2021 after COVID when they did the race where they weren't really going in any of the villages, so all the checkpoints were pretty, like off of the main, like off of the main pathway essentially. So they made a special belt buckle for that year's race. So I think everybody that finished that year got the Gold Rush loop belt buckle, but so that's a separate one that everybody got.
And the last question on the belt buckle, I'm sure you've seen your dad's belt buckles over the years. Is it at all different than yours?
Yeah, I think it's slightly different. I mean, his you can barely even read the year that it says. It's so worn down. I think the background is a little bit different. Mine, it's like bronze, and then in the background it's kind of blackish. But I think his was like all bronze, but maybe that's just because it got all faded with lots of wear and tear. But yeah, I think they're all slightly the same. But I think the thing with the bronze casting process is it's kind of unique. I know even the first place trophies, the championship trophies, are slightly different over the years as well. Just because when they make them, I think they have to do like a clay sculpture or wax sculpture, and then put the sand around it, and then burn out the wax, and then pour the bronze in there. I don't exactly know the whole process behind casting bronze, but it's something like that. So they have to make like a sculpture for each individual trophy that they make.
Very cool. So it's not like the Stanley Cup one that is one trophy and then is perpetual that has every year on it. It continues on. Okay, so we have you have your finishers check. You have a cup that you get if you're in the top 20. You have your vet book. You have your patch, and then if it's your first time, you have your belt buckle. Is there anything else as an official finisher for Iditarod?
I'm not sure. I think that pretty much covered it.
Okay. All right. So, hey, that's firsthand knowledge that we have never gotten before. So thank you for sharing that. We really appreciate it. As we said, it goes typically up from the back of the pack to the front. And by the time that Jesse Holmes is done, people are probably looking at their watches pretty tightly because there is a special flight that goes out from Nome right after the banquet. I think it's like 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, something like that, which is pretty spectacular with all these people here. And a lot of them are going to be rushing over there in those $10 cab rides, which is a
They have held the flight. If the banquet kind of drags on, I'm pretty sure they have held the flight before, because it's like, well, everybody's there. That they postponed it from time to time.
Interesting. Those $10 cab rides. That is not a cab from New York. Let's ask Michelle a little bit that you've been on the Nome cabs a couple of times. Give us the flavor of that.
Well, they were better than the Bethel cab.
Okay.
But because when we got picked up, we were picked up in a actual van and given a ride into the center of town and just dropped off in basically the middle of the street. But cabs are much different than what you see and partake in New York City. In New York, it's a definite traditional cab like you're thinking of when you think of the old TV show Taxi or any kind of movie you've ever seen about New York. It's typically a yellow cab with definite markers on it and all of that. In Nome, it is suspect. You might be getting in the back seat of somebody's car, which is what we definitely did in Bethel.
Yeah, it's quite interesting, and they're in different ranges of disrepair for sure. And what I think's pretty cool, and I know this is probably more Alaska than anything else, when you call into the cab, the phone call goes right to the handheld radio of the cab driver. And I went a couple of times this time, and they are coming in like wildfire. I have no idea how they keep them up. I mean, they're saying, okay, I'm here at the Aurora Inn. I'm here at the Airport Pizza. I'm here at the Hanson's Grocery. And they're just banging them out. And then what's even more interesting, and this really tells how small of a town it is, somebody will call in a cab and they'll say, oh, I'm at 108 4th Street or whatever. And they'll say, okay, Mary, we'll be there in 5 minutes to pick you up. And I think that's definitely quaint. I mean, they know who these guys are just by their phone call. And one other thing is they do not take credit cards. You better have cold, hard cash. Otherwise, you're going to be walking to the airport, and it's a little bit of a hike. It's not something that I guess you could cruise on over there, but it's quite the hike, especially if you're lugging around a heck of a lot of gear. So
it should be noted, it's not $10 for the cab for the pair of us. It's $10 per person.
Oh, yeah. And
tip is expected.
Tip is expected. That is for sure. Okay. Rone, do you have anything else on the ins and outs of the banquet before we go into the next section?
No, I mean, I don't know if they do the like other awards, sportsmanship and things like that before they start announcing or having the people come up for their thank yous and stuff. Or if they kind of do a few teams and then they'll do like, okay, we're going to do this award and that award and then a few more teams. But yeah, at some point they'll present those ones as well.
All right. There you go, guys. If you're interested in watching it, I guess they give you a discounted pass, so you could jump on there right now. And if you sign up for Iditarod Insider, it is that cost per year. So if you sign up today, guess what? You will get all of next year for the price that you pay today. That's a big selling point. So I would probably do that if I were you, because you can get today's banquet. And then I'm not sure where the dates line up, but I almost bet that you could get almost all of next year's race for that first $39 or $49 charge that you do. Michelle?
Do they cover the picnic in June? The volunteer picnic and sign up?
I don't think that they have insider, but you do have access to the documentaries that they do. A little bit later in the year, they do the kind of the race recap documentary, and they sell that still as a DVD, but you can also obviously watch it online if you
It
are.
looks like a tripod award of some sort is being given out right now.
It is the Golden Tripod, it says, and that goes to Aaron Burmeister, and I cannot tell. Oh, Trail Stewardship Award. I think that's a new award. I haven't heard of that one. Have you, Rone?
I have not. Yeah, sounds like a cool one to get. Maybe he helped with the trail breaking or something.
Yeah, yep. So that's what they're doing now. So we will.
He may have helped put that trail in out of Fairbanks to Manly.
Yep. So we'll get
Right.
a list of all the awards. They'll send out a press release to us tonight, and we'll post that over on our show page. Oh, we forgot to mention the Rookie of the Year, and that was Samantha Lalonde. She won that award. We got that press release earlier today. So we were talking about that all race between now and then. So let's turn it over. We're going to start with ladies first. Michelle, I hope you have a favorite story. Hopefully you do not take mine that I sent you over by text message, but I'm going to go third. So we're going to go you, then Rone, and then me, and then we'll each comment for just a bit on the story that you tell. Go for it.
As much as I love making you scramble, if I took your idea, I won't make you scramble tonight. So since April 28th, 2024, I have been participating in not only my favorite story of this year, but it has become my favorite Iditarod or dog mushing thing to ever have written about and participated in. And that is when the Burled Arch fell. I did an immediate blog post and a podcast on our mushing podcast, and then I followed that story all the way through every stage that Ramey was going to find it and carving it and getting it ready and it being erected in Nome. So my favorite story is that of the Burled Arch being replaced.
And aside from just sort of the history part of it, why is that your favorite? Because obviously it's a big deal for the race, but why? What's the story arc for you, and what makes it your favorite?
Ramey said something that brought both of us to tears during my interview with him. And if I give it away tonight, then no one's going to want that 200th issue. So I'm not going to do that. But his story was so moving. He said, I've ran Iditarod for 30 years because I asked him, what does the Burled Arch mean for you? And it's a pretty big part of the story. And it brought both of us to tears. And in that moment, that's the closest I've ever felt to any dog musher other than you, of course.
All right. Rone, do you have any comment about the Burled Arch story?
Yeah, I think it's pretty cool that you guys were able to cover that whole thing and get the whole scoop from start to finish. So yeah, I think that's pretty neat that you guys did that.
And I know exactly where my fingerprints are on that Burled Arch.
My thoughts on it. Obviously, it's definitely a cool story. I'm glad we were been able to give the opportunity to spend time with him. I know Ramey spent a tremendous amount of time with local media, getting their sound bites and getting their 2-minute interviews for the news and all that. He had a lot of media coverage that he had to do. But I tell you, Michelle, he was on top of it with you. I mean, within an update being done, you would get a text message from him or Becca that says, okay, we're doing this, or the arch, the log is here, or we're starting carving, or we're moving it over to the log yard, or whatever they would say. They kept you updated, and I'm sure they probably did that with the local media. But I guess the coolest part about it is that he gave you that access, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, and he gave access to anybody that asked him for it. And not only that, but he made sure that we weren't a gaggle of media people hovering around in a small space on someone else's property. He scheduled your time, and he usually scheduled my time based around my schedule too. And that made it nice because he knew I was always going to be coming home, driving right past it. It was only a mile away. And so he would make time out of his evening to circle back around and meet me at Brian's house so that I could continue to do my little updates on my stories. And that was really cool. Ramy is a very private, quiet kind of a guy. He doesn't seek out this attention. He has received so much attention during the past year that I think it is enough for the rest of his life.
He does appear to be quite quiet. And it should be noted that, as we talked about earlier in our coverage, Travis Beals, Iditarod veteran multiple times, helped him find it down there in Seward. He lives down there where his kennel is at. And then our neighbor over in the next neighborhood over, Brian Mills, another expert woodsman,
and Iditarod finisher.
And Iditarod finisher all helped out with that. So very cool.
Never been interviewed on your mushing podcast and probably won't. He's more quiet than Ramy.
Yes. Okay. So story one is the Burled Arch. All right, Rone, your turn. What is your favorite or most interesting story of this year's Iditarod?
I think one of my favorite stories from this year's Iditarod is the race that Matthew Failor ran. I think it's kind of a really interesting one because it's a good example of somebody who I think at the start of the race his he was probably worried about getting to the finish line even. I mean, I'm not sure, but taking your 24 way earlier than anyone else, kind of regrouping and then starting from behind and every checkpoint along the way kind of moving up in position, working his way into an 11th place finish, I think is a pretty cool story because it kind of early on looked maybe a little rough for him. I was kind of worried for him. I was like, oh no, like what, he's 24 and 10 now. He must be having some kind of issues and but whatever was going on, he worked through them and persevered, and his team came together, and it looks like he had a really good run. And I thought that was pretty neat. I'm sure there were times for him where he was like, man, I hope I make it to the finish line, and sure enough, he did, and had a good strong finish. So yeah, that's a pretty cool story to me.
All right, Michelle. Besides what Rone said, what do you think about Matt Failor and Rone's story that they shared?
I don't know, Robert. I really thought that Matt was the coolest dad on the planet, carrying his baby boy at the ceremonial start.
Oh yeah, that was a cool thing. I mean, we were right there at Cordova Hill there, and he had him all bundled up, not on his back, but in the front. So facing forward so he could be fully present down the trail there. For Rone, my story actually is also about Matt Failor. And if you guys remember...
so Rone, you see that? You totally took his story.
Yeah. If you guys remember, Rone hadn't joined us yet. Remember, Rone joined us on Tuesday, so the day after the restart, but we gave our predictions on Friday, so the day before the ceremonial start, and I said, okay, well, one of mine in the top 5 is Matt, and I gave the rest of the top 5, and I said, it is Matt Hall, not Matt Failor, because I think Matt has his hands full with being a new dad, and this is right after the night where he was at the ceremonial start. He walked up with his little boy and picked out the starting order from the muckluck and all of that. And then, of course, the next day was running down the trail with his little boy and all of that. So interesting enough, I guess it was last year or so, I was in Seattle at the airport at the gate for a delayed flight. And this is commonplace now in Seattle. I cannot stand flying into Seattle now. But I was at the gate there, and up walked Matt and his wife, Liz. And I said, "Hey, what are you guys doing here?" He goes, "Well, I'm getting ready to fly out to Ohio or somewhere." Or he'd just flown into Ohio, and he was getting ready to fly out to somewhere else. He said to go buy a dog truck. And they had this little kid with them. I mean, he was small, because this little kid now, Theo is his name. He's still a little chap, right?
I think he's almost 2.
So yeah, he's almost 2. So this is a little kid at the time. He was still in that little baby thing, that little baby carrier backpack.
You can tell Robert didn't participate in those.
So I got to meet this little kid, and of course I met Matt, and the little kid Theo and mom Liz jumped on a plane to head back to Alaska, whereas Matt stood behind, and we chatted for a little bit like you do at the gate. But the story comes full circle because of Theo. Theo finished the Iditarod this year in his dad's arms.
So he started it and he finished it.
And he finished it in his dad's arm up Front Street. I don't know what time he finished. I don't know if it was in the middle of the night. They kept this little kid up all night long to see his dad come in. But this is from Dee Dee. She posted this last night. She says, "Matthew Failor came trotting in under the arch with his beautiful son Theo in his arms to be greeted by his beautiful wife, and opened up a special box that revealed blue booties, sharing that he has another son on the way this summer." Pretty exciting. So that is my story.
That's the best reveal party I've heard of.
It is. So let's turn this over to Rone. Both of us had the Matt story. I'm sure that you were a little worried about he was going to finish, but he's a tenacious musher. He's on our same trails, and boy, I tell you what, he puts in his dues, grooming and carrying on him and his crew. Because it's really just a couple of us over here, him and Vern's crew, and occasionally Ramey over here. But yeah, what do you think about the gender reveal and the kid in the sled? You're a new dad. Give us a dad's perspective of this from Iditarod.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. I guess I haven't even really looked at too many photos from the ceremonial start, but yeah, you could say he was at the start and at the finish. So I guess maybe I should tell Theo, hey, just so you know, buddy, I remember doing that sort of thing growing up, and turns out there's a lot of trail in between those 2 points. So, when you run your first Iditarod, you see the rest of the miles, and it's kind of it's a big experience. But I'm sure Theo, if he wants to, will have that opportunity to go down the trail. So, yeah, that's pretty neat. He's getting started, and yeah, having a second child, that's oh man, it just ups the challenge. It's fun. If you think Iditarod is challenging, I think try having kids. I think it's more challenging than running the Iditarod personally.
So you guys are pretty close in age with the kids. How old is your little boy?
Our son is I think six or so months older. Wait, no, they're like 8 months apart, I think.
And you have a brand new one, just came this winter, yes?
Yep.
So,
yeah, so we'll have between the 4 kids, we'll have the oldest, and then Theo, and then our second, and then their second. So yeah, we've got them pretty evenly spaced out in there. So
well,
in the next.
I think Junior Iditarod safe.
Yeah, I think Junior Iditarod safe.
Just plenty of a field.
Yeah, just in the Failor Booster household, they've got half the field for sure. So very cool for sure. And before I turn this over to Michelle to give her thoughts on this story, if you remember, I asked you and Alyssa when we met this summer, and I met your little boy before Grandma came to pick him up and take him over to her house for the night or whatever. I said, so are you going to encourage your little guy? And I think this was even before you guys knew what your new kid was going to be boy or girl. I said, hey, are you going to allow him to do junior Iditarod? And you said exactly what you just said. You're going to leave it up to them. You're not going to force it on them in any way. You're going to let them prove their own path, I guess is the right way to say it, right?
Yep.
Very cool. So anything else on that, Rone?
Oh, I was gonna say that's kind of the way that it was presented to me. I think even Mushing might have been slightly discouraged. I don't know. My parents, I think, wanted me to go out and get an education and get a real job, and here I am scooping dog poop every day. So,
right. All right, Michelle. What do you think about the both stories with Matt?
You know, I think what I want to take from it is that the same thing I'm seeing on the Finishers Banquet. There's a lot of kids, and they're being held by their musher parents that just finished the Iditarod, and it's a beautiful thing to see. There's nothing better than to see a bunch of toddlers running around. That means that the sport has an opportunity to continue. And I say that because some of our listeners know my backstory and some of you don't. But when I met Robert, my kids were ages 2, 5, and 7 years old. So they weren't little tiny kids, but I mean, Nicole was. And when I met him, I had no idea what dog mushing was. I had no idea it was a sport. I had Malamutes. I just wanted my Malamute to learn how to pull my kids up in their kids sled up the hill because we had a 7-acre property in the mountains in Colorado. And that's how I met him. I asked a question in an AOL chat room, and he came to my house and he proceeded to tell me that my Malamute was actually a wolf hybrid. And what in the heck did I think I was doing with that around my kids? And I was like, it's the best dog we've ever had. So Nicole, at 2 years old, learned all about iron will and dog mushing through Robert. And because of her desire to want to run sled dogs, and after her first race with a single lead and a sled that was a junior sled, but she was too small for it because she was 2 years old, she was hooked so hard that she proceeded to encourage Robert to enter into the weight pool at the same event, and the two of them never looked back. And here I am, some 25 years later, sitting in a cabin in Alaska where I never saw myself. And so I think that once they understand the thrill of the trail, it's hard to get those kids off of it.
And in this very room where we're recording this podcast right now, about 3 feet from where I'm sitting, Nicole texted her mom on a Saturday morning on a little pink flip phone. And I said, it's going to be up to you, Nicole. I want you to text your mom back in Colorado and let her know your decision. And she texted mom and she said, Mom, we're moving to Alaska. So we put it in the hands of a 12-year-old. We bought this place right now. Shortly thereafter, we moved up. She ended up doing 2 Willow Junior 100s, a couple of junior Iditarods, and all that goes with it. And
and now she is your teaching assistant at UAA and APU.
Yeah, so that's how kids can get involved, whether they have their own path, like Rone said with his little boy, and of course with Matt and his one and one upcoming. It is a good time in the sport of dog mushing, and I think that's cool. And we're going to come back to that. Where do we think the future is in just a second? So that is our story. So the top stories are 2 Matt Failor stories and the Burled Arch can be expected.
And kids in the dog mushing.
Kids and dog mushing. So let's move it over to the next section. And this is where I typically say thanks to all of our fans. Much, much appreciated. When we went into this, it was just going to be me and Michelle sort of flying on this together. We put out a quick post, I don't know, a month or two ahead of Iditarod, and we said, hey, is anybody interested? And a couple of people said, yeah, but I can't dedicate my time to this. And, it's a lot of work. So at the ceremonial start, I believe I said to Michelle, hey, we really should see if we could get somebody else on. And I think it was probably either that night or the next day, I texted over to these guys' Facebook page, the Susitna Sled Dog Adventures. And I said, hey, I know it's a late call, but are you or Rone or both of you at all interested in coming on and doing our nightly podcast? And we got a message back pretty close after that from Alyssa, Rone's wife, and she said, yes, Rone is very interested in doing this. And I said, well, what kind of particulars do we have? And she said, well, I am 99% sure he says he wants to do this, but he is out on a run right now. So I cannot fully commit, but we'll let you know tonight.
And that's a strong marriage.
That is a strong marriage. So I come back to this because even though we're thanking our fans and all the comments we've gotten and all the questions and all the hoorahs and a few Patreon supporters and a few magazine subscriptions and all of that,
that we're thankful for.
We're definitely thankful for, but I am tremendously thankful to this guy on the other end of the mic. This guy has never done a podcast before. He seems to be a rather quiet guy, and I remember meeting him at our interview. He was a pretty quiet gentleman. His wife definitely is much more animated than he. But Rone, I've got to ask you, this is your time to talk about your experience here on the podcast. Kind of give us a grade. What do you think? How did it go for you? Just give us your take on it.
Yeah, I've had a blast. It's so the 99%. I think how it went down was I was out on a training run and Alyssa either called me or texted me and said like, hey, I think you should go on the podcast for Mushing Magazine. It's it'd be good. You're gonna run Iditarod next year, so you should kind of get in Iditarod mode now. And I was like, I'm on a run. I got to think about it. We do have a lot going on, so I was like, another thing. But I've been having a lot of fun, so I'm really glad I did it. I think I'm definitely going into each episode a little bit less prepared than you guys. I mean, you guys are doing a lot more work with the show. I'm just hopping on and giving my 2 cents. So I appreciate that. I appreciate you guys helping me out with kind of steer me in the right direction with stuff, and hopefully I can provide some insight that is informational, entertaining, and so it's been fun. It's been a fun time on the show.
Well, I tell you what, Michelle and I are big time football fans, and we loved John Madden back in the day. And his entire job was to have that animation and that expertise and all of that. We've been doing this for a very long time, Rone. We started our nightly coverage of the podcast way back in 2010. So this is our 15th year of doing some form or another of the podcast. And as Iditarod Finisher told me one time, he says, you are the OG most prominent dog mushing podcast on the planet. He said that to us in a testimonial one time. So we've been doing this a long time, but we've always sort of been flying blind. I've been trying to give a musher's perspective on this, at least by knowing what they're going through their head, but we never had the Iditarod's perspective. And I really appreciate that. I think you brought something to our show this time that we had never had before. It's definitely going to be hard to top it. I have no idea what the future is for our podcast because we have a lot going on in the next couple of years that we haven't really even talked about. But
I don't know, Robert. I think that possibly we might need to be the roving reporters on the trail next year since our co-host is going to be out there.
I know it. We have to do what Dallas and all those crew are doing, get out there with a camera or two. So Michelle, do you want to say something to Rone?
I just want to say thank you to Alyssa.
Yeah.
She was thinking outside the box, and she was forecasting exactly what Rone is going to need, because Rone's name is known. He's a known Iditarod finisher, but grabbing that fan base is becoming harder and harder, and it's also much more cutthroat.
It
so
is.
She wasn't wrong.
Yeah, it is a tough world out there. I know it's been a few years since Rone has run Iditarod, but as you know, Rone, everybody has the same little group of fans. Everybody is going after that same fan pool, if you will, and it is a tough hoe to haul for sure. So definitely thanks to Rone, definitely thanks to our fans, and of course I have to say thanks to Michelle. She is not quite as busy as I am. I'm probably the least busy of the three of us.
You said that wrong. You said, I'm not quite as busy as you are. I am probably the busiest.
Yes, of the two of us for sure. So I definitely have to give a thanks out to Michelle. Michelle, how did this go for you this year?
Well, I've always tried to give the fan perspective, the handler perspective, and the wife perspective, and a little bit of a sponsor perspective, because that's what my roles have been. And it's tough sometimes because I don't want to fall into rabbit holes. I don't want to fall into silos and rumor mills and things like that. And sometimes that can get tough because I am very defensive of the sport. I am all about dog-powered sports. And when we got the opportunity to dive into Mushing Magazine, I jumped in with both feet and pushed you into it, just like Alyssa pushed Rone. That 99% goes a long ways.
All right. So thank you, Michelle, for being with us. Okay, so we're going to move in. We have two quick sections to go. These are questions, and I ask these questions typically to all of my audience. Rone answered this question in our sit-down interview, but this is a whole new audience. Rone, I'm going to turn this to you first. So the question is, where do you see the sport of mushing in 5 and 10 years?
I think, in the next 5 years, I think we'll hopefully see more teams signing up for Iditarod. I know that that's a controversial topic. The last couple of years have seen fairly small fields participating, but I know there's a lot of guys and girls out there with kennels of Iditarod quality dogs, and there's a handful of people that are kind of flying under the radar right now that I know could put together an Iditarod team and be out on the trail. I mean, there's plenty of Iditarod finishers themselves that, like you guys had mentioned, little kids everywhere. So I think a number of us, I guess you could call us middle-aged folk at this point, having kids and doing that part of our lives, kind of doing the first couple years, and I think in the next 5 years we'll see more mushing kind of kennels and kind of family kennels starting to participate on a yearly basis. That's just kind of my thoughts over the next 5 years, and then the next 10 years. Like you guys said, I think the junior Iditarod in what's it, 10, 12 or so years is going to have quite a few kids that grew up dog mushing in Alaska that will be running again, and I think I think that's pretty neat. I think that in certain areas of Alaska, like the YK Delta region, where sled dog sports are thriving, will continue to grow, and I hope that more teams from that region will make their way into Iditarod and participate in some of the other races on the road system. So yeah, I think mushing's doing pretty good. I think the hardest challenge that it's facing right now is figuring out, having kennels figure out how to make it just financially viable, because putting together a racing team is really expensive. It requires a lot of time, it requires a lot of resources, and the race prize money, like you guys had said, it it goes away pretty fast. It's never guaranteed, and it's something that it's nice if you do well in a race and you get that paycheck, but it pretty quickly goes right towards dog food. So I think with things like social media and kennels being able to kind of engage directly with their fan bases, I think that's a huge way to help kennels be able to support their race efforts and be able to make it to the start and finish line. So I think that's pretty cool to see. And then the monetary reward for the race, that's just kind of motivation to do well in an event.
All right. Thank you for that, Rone. Let's go to Michelle. Where do you see I don't know if you've ever answered this question because we ask.
I've never been asked.
You've never been.
I've never claimed to be a musher.
All right. Well, you don't have to be a musher to answer this. We've had a lot of guests on. They've been veterinarians and authors and filmmakers and the whole 9 yards over the years. So, Michelle, where do you see the sport of dog mushing in the next 5 to 10 years?
I see the sport of dog mushing in the next 5 years really taking off for micro kennels, dryland mushing, and sprint and mid distance, especially in the lower 48 and in Europe. I think that Alaska is missing an opportunity to grow with dryland mushing, as it really only seems to be through South Central Alaska. And I think that there's opportunities to see that in Seward, in the Kenai Peninsula, and even in some of those villages where mushing is pretty prevalent in the winter. I would like to see dryland mushing grow and have more opportunities, maybe even an Eagle River Classic type thing, but dryland mushing. I think that sponsors need to be nurtured. And I think that that's something that has gone away because the sponsors were always there for these races, not just Iditarod, but any of the bigger races, lower 48 and up here, they were always there. And I think that a lot of the race committees and things forgot to nurture their sponsors, and PETA and others came in and drove them out. And I think that a sponsor campaign across the board for all mushing kennels that want to participate in any kind of competitive racing, whether it be dryland or mushing on snow, need to nurture the sponsors back into the fold, as well as the communities, because the communities, they aren't sparking volunteerism for this type of sport because they just don't really offer anything other than helping get dirty and watching it. You have to make it an event that everybody wants to come out and enjoy. And if that means you got to prop up a Ferris wheel and sell some hot dogs, better figure it out.
That's it, Michelle?
That's it.
All right, guys. So as we've said, we've been doing this a long time. I've seen a lot of things come and go over the years, and people always ask, why do we do a podcast over everything else? And we do it because most people that are listening will sit here and listen the entire time. Unless you are fully engrossed in a Netflix movie or something else, it is tough to hold somebody's attention for an hour of time, whether they're sitting on their computer or they're driving on a commute or they're picking up poop in the dog yard. I remember hearing one time a longtime fan saying, I pick up dog poop and listen to your podcast, and my favorite episode ever is Dee Genre, and I've listened to it a half a dozen times, and we did that podcast probably 15 years ago. So for whatever reason, this medium works. In terms of long-term growth, a couple of things. I was down doing the announcing gig for 2 races in October. The Iron Paws race, which had over 100 entries. It was a dryland event in a little town in north central Washington, and they had 100 entries to that. And then about 2 weeks later, I went to the Continental Dryland Championship. It had 250 entries to that from people all over the United States, Canada, and Mexico. huge numbers of entries. Yes, it was dry land, but a lot of those people still do winter sports. Next year, they're going to do the World Championships there. I will be down there for doing that. So they're expecting maybe 300 entries for that. So I think, like Michelle said, the future of dog mushing is really capturing those people, whether they're drylanders or recreational guys. And maybe they don't run Iditarod, but they become vocal about dog mushing. They become ardent fans. And I think
they volunteer.
Or they volunteer. So that's the next thing. The big part of that is something that I'm working with my buddy David Pike. We've had, I don't know how many dinners this summer till now, and we've been racking our heads about what can be next, what can take this to the next level. And I think that we're in a very unique position, in particular here with what we have, where we're going to offer some very cool things. Michelle talked about introducing community to this. We have a very cool sponsorship program that we're doing where every single entry to a race, we give a monetary donation to some nonprofit in the community. We did that in Washington. We did that in Wisconsin. We did that here in South Central Alaska. We just tested it with $5 per entry. But if you have 200 entries at $5 a piece, that's $1,000 donation to a nonprofit. And why do we do that? Because we show up to their location and we are expecting them. We're expecting them to house us, to feed us and everything else. But often we just jump in the dog truck and we leave, meaning we as dog mushers. So we want to be able to give back. We're going to increase that exponentially next year with the Team and Trail Foundation that we just started. We're going to start sponsoring a very small group of athletes and influencers. We're going to start something very similar to what they do in college football with the name and image and likeness, meaning if your name is mentioned in some capacity, all of you youngsters know about influence marketing. I'm sure Alyssa knows all about this, Rone's wife. We're going to instill that. That is very important to us, and we're going to jump on that as quickly as we can. So I think the future looks bright for dog mushing. Okay, I know that's long and winded. Let's jump over to the next couple of questions, and they are very short.
Well, Robert, I'm going to come on in and let everybody know that Bailey Vitello got Most Improved Musher Award, and Nick Pettit with an arm in a sling took the Sportsmanship Award.
Very cool. Very cool. Rone, the next question is to you. It is, what do you always carry with you other than your phone under $100?
I was gonna say headlamp, but that's just over 100. You're talking about in the sled?
Anytime, whether it's on your errands, in your sled, in your pocket, kind of everyday carry stuff. What do you always have with you? What do you have with you?
Well, right now I've been carrying around a Leatherman, multi-tool, just on my belt. I've got the Leatherman Skelly tool. It's kind of nice. It's got a little belt clip mini carabiner thing in there, and it's got just the bare necessities: a screwdriver, pliers, and a knife. So it's kind of handy tool. I wouldn't say I always have it on me, but pretty dang close. I don't know. I travel pretty light most of the time when I'm out and about in town. So got my wallet, got my phone. But yeah, I wouldn't say I really don't carry around too much.
I'm a pretty light carrier too, Rone. Michelle, what do you carry with you under $100, except your phone?
Does it have to be under $100?
Yes. It's a tough question. I've been asking this for a while.
My EDC is a little spendy. The stuff I actually carry with me every single day, no ifs, ands, or buts, is my iPhone, my Rolex analog watch, and my Oakleys. Those are on me no matter what, every single day, even when I'm on the dog sled trail. Those three things are always with me. Something I carry that's under $100, you should go check out my YouTube channel and look up my Alaska wife's EDC gear, because there's always a butter knife within reach.
Yes, for sure. I am sort of like Rone. I don't carry a whole lot of stuff in my pockets for sure. One thing that I do carry that is definitely under $100. A while back, I guess this has been a couple of years from now, and this is kind of a priceless deal because, of course, I have my wallet and my phone and my keys and all of that junk that I carry. But I have this little token that Michelle gave me in a card a little while ago. It's just this little stamped token that I carry around everywhere that I go in my wallet. But what we have been doing, at least on our adventures,
A little while ago,
yeah,
I picked up that token for you at a retreat in Estes Park in 2007.
okay. There you go. It's been a while.
That's
then.
a little while ago.
One of the things that we always carry under $100 on our travels, especially if you have been following us for the last year or so, we have these two little Lego dudes, Chaser and Dream. We carry them around and we take pictures of them everywhere we go, and they have their own page over on mushing.com. And for whatever reason, they're building up a little following, especially on Patreon account.
Don't they have their own Instagram?
Not their own Instagram, but they're building up some cred, if you will, some cred on Patreon.
The best thing ever, though, is that they live in a 1x3-inch Altoids container.
Their little suitcase. Okay, so that is what we're carrying. Okay, next question is to Michelle first. Michelle, what are you listening to right now? Is it an artist? Is it a song? What is it?
Oh, you always put me on the spot with that. Right now, I am digging the new Shinedown album, Dance Kid Dance. So that's pretty much what I've been listening to a lot lately.
All right. Rone, what are you listening?
And I do have to give you props because I saw on the hockey game, the Kraken game, moments before we got on this very podcast, that Shinedown would be at Climate Pledge Arena on August 8th. And I got tickets.
For $50, for crying out loud. Rone, what are you listening to in terms of music right now? If it's not a particular artist or song, what type of music do you listen to?
You heard the moan, Rone.
No,
it was. It's reciprocated.
It's pretty eclectic. I listen to everything. I mean, really everything. From smooth jazz to heavy metal, classic music, everything. But I do having a very I think the word is precocious. Is that where they talk a lot? A very communicative 2.5-year-old. I like listening to the sounds of silence when I'm out and about. It's something that is very peaceful and relaxing when I get the opportunity to do that. So a lot of times when I'm out by myself on the dog sled, it's nice and quiet, and that's perfectly fine with me.
Okay. Very good. Currently, what am I listening to? I listen to a lot of stuff like Rone. I usually just put the old iPhone on shuffle, and we have music on there from way back. Everything, like you said, from jazz to blues to some country to some rap, all of that.
Yeah, but admit it, you're usually listening to Tool.
I do like Tool. I have been listening a lot to Metallica, of course. That's sort of my go-to jam if I'm flying down the road. So I listen to that. I do like their 72 Seasons, which is their latest CD. So that is probably my favorite. But man, I've got a lot of different trail tunes that I can call up for sure. Okay, here we go. Last of this rapid fire question. And that is, I know I asked you this, Rone, before on our interview, but what is your favorite trail meal or snack and why?
Ooh, that definitely would have to be my mother's oatmeal molasses cookies because they taste delicious. They're energizing. They got the right balance of, different kinds of, a little sugar, little fats and oils, a little bit of saltiness. And yeah, they're good when they're fresh. They're good when they're frozen at 60 below, and everything in between. So yeah, that's definitely my go-to trail snack. And I guess I gotta make sure that my wife figures out how to make them really well. She actually makes really good oatmeal molasses cookies too, but it's kind of that something that I grew up with, so they're slightly different. So yeah, maybe I'll have all sorts of different kinds of oatmeal molasses cookies out on the trail next year.
Excellent.
Now
So
you remember my story from yesterday. You should take heed and remind yourself that sometime mom's baked goods bring in the mushers to help you eat them.
the cinnamon rolls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
So maybe your wife's cookies, although wonderful, may not bring all the mushers in.
The boys to the yard like those milkshakes. So Michelle, I don't remember who that guy was, but that guy literally wanted.
Lester?
I don't remember. He was literally going to scratch for my Iditarod because he ran out of cinnamon
He did
rolls.
scratch.
That's all he had to eat.
He did. He ran out of cinnamon rolls and couldn't go farther.
So,
Like literally, he scratched.
so Michelle, I know that you do not do very long runs, so we're going to modify this question just a little bit. But what is your favorite road trip snack?
Well, my God, Robert, why would you ask me that? Chick-fil-A. Because we don't get it often. And it's the first thing I ask for if we're going to road trip, which we do a lot when we get down to the lower 48. I'll say, I don't care how far we got to drive. We're not passing by the first Chick-fil-A we see. And that's what I get.
Okay. So it's been a while since I did a decent race of sorts, but I think if I had to think about what I would like to have, and I thought about this because I know very familiar about Rone's mom's molasses cookies, I am going to have to say banana bread.
Yes, and my banana bread,
Yep.
because your mom didn't bake.
Yeah. So my trail snack of choice would be banana bread, and I think it is because, like those cookies, they would be perfectly fine whether it's somewhat frozen or perfectly soft. I think it does have a little bit of sweet, a little bit of softy, a little bit of crunchy, if you will, if it has some walnuts in it.
Well,
And
I usually use pecan nuts and give you two varieties.
the chocolate chip.
Robert gets two varieties, mini chocolate chip topping or cinnamon crumble topping with the pecan nuts. So you get two varieties.
Okay. All right, Rone. So here we go. The last question of the night, and I know we're a little long, but this is our last one. Tell us where we can follow you. Where are all the places, and what are you up to next? You've alluded to doing Iditarod here in 2026, I guess it is. What's on tap for you between now and middle of March 2026? What's on the schedule for you?
Well, you're putting me on the spot now. So you can follow us at Susitna Sled Dog Adventures. That's SUSITNA Sled Dog Adventures. That's our handle on Instagram. We're the same thing on Facebook. SusitnaSledDogs.com is our website. Yeah, so you can follow us on all the different social medias. We're on TikTok as well. We're not on Twitter or X currently, I don't think. So that's a platform that I haven't populated quite yet. As far as the schedule, we have the opportunity potentially in the next week or so to sign up for the Kobuk 440, and we've been discussing it. We've been thinking about it, and we might do it, but we're not gonna commit to the Kobuk 440 yet. It's a definite maybe for this season. So that's, I think, April 3rd. I think we have till March 26th to decide about that. So maybe Kobuk 440 in a couple weeks. But then as far as next season, probably going to be doing some of the local mid-distance races, the Connect 100, Connect 200. I'd like to do the Copper Basin 300, just because this last year we had to cancel at the last minute because we had prior engagements with a very important birthday. So that one is a maybe. Kuskokum 300 is a maybe for next season. But yeah, I think we're definitely going to focus on Iditarod. So the mid distance races, you know, we would like to do them, but it's just kind of a matter of what we're going to schedule, and you know, maybe we'll do all of them, maybe we'll do a couple of them, or you know, maybe something in between. But yeah, the main one definitely for next season is focusing on Iditarod. So that's kind of, you know, the finish line will be in Nome, like I've said before. So that's gonna be the primary goal of 2025, 2026.
And there you have it, guys. And of course, all of Rone's links are on the show page. They will be there forever. So again, we're hopeful that he does well with what he is doing. And I hope we were able to share a little bit of this stage, if you will, with Rone and his time. So Michelle, what are you going to be up to in the next year?
Hopefully graduating and finishing my doctorate in strategic leadership.
Okay. Anything else?
That is one thing that I have on my platter, and it is taking up the lion's share of my free time.
Okay, so Michelle is going to finish up Iditarod.
That's basically my Iditarod.
So we have some other interesting parts to that. So right around beginning of December, I finished up 14 years of school. I've been in school every day since August of 2014. And Michelle says, okay, you finished up school. What are you going to do next? And I remember sitting right here in the living room and I said, why don't we try to run Iditarod? I've got all this time on my hands. So we decided that's what we're going to do. So next year we're going to do our qualifiers. It's going to be hopefully something like the Connect 200, probably the Copper Basin, maybe either the Cusco or the Sioux Dog, depending on snow. And then, of course, signing up next year for Iditarod and for 2027. So that is our intention. How can you follow us? Easiest spot is mushing.com. We will also be doing our team and trail tour, which is very cool. Last year we did that in Minnesota and Wisconsin. This year in August, I will be doing that in all of the mountain states. I have a podcast conference in Dallas, and then I'm heading up north from Dallas to Seattle, and we're going to hit up as many kennels as we can in Colorado and Utah and Wyoming and Idaho and Montana and Washington, and get interviews and stories and all sorts of stuff for content for next year. And then, of course, depending on how things go, we may or may not be on the podcast next year, but we encourage you guys to subscribe.
Well, no, it wouldn't be 2026. It would be 2027.
Well, depending on what happens with racing and all for this week next year.
Right.
So
I guess I'll be the one-woman show.
One-woman show. Otherwise, definitely hit that subscribe button.
I don't know. Maybe Alyssa will be 99% my co-host.
Maybe. Rone will be out on the trail. So with that, definitely subscribe to our podcast right after this, meaning next Saturday, we will have weekly episodes over on our Mushing podcast, and that goes on all year. We've sent out a bunch of invitations already, and we already have a couple of interviews in the bag, as they call it, to be ready to drop. What I typically do is after everybody gets home and settled, I will send out an email to everybody that finishes and just start filling the calendar. And people are talking about Iditarod in March, and it's not even aired until August, and they're talking about, man, I'm so tired because I just finished Iditarod. And here it is, August episode. So very interesting schedule there. So with that, one last thanks to our fans. Thank you very much for listening and supporting us. Thank you to Michelle, and thank you to Rone, and thank you for everybody that's put up with us for the last couple of weeks. We have so many hours into this. It's just unbelievable in terms of time. So thank you again. And with that, we will see you guys next time. Goodbye.
Are you a fan of the great outdoors? Do you enjoy the thrill of speed and adventure? Then listen up. Introducing Mushing, your ultimate guide to the exciting world of dog-powered sports and mushing. Whether you're a seasoned musher or just starting out, Mushing has got you covered. Get ready to immerse yourself in captivating stories of incredible sled dog races, expert training tips from seasoned professionals, and gear reviews to help you make the right choices for your team. From the breathtaking landscapes of Alaska to the snowy trails of Scandinavia, Mushing takes you on a thrilling journey through the world of dog-powered sports. Don't miss out on the latest issue, packed with exclusive interviews with top mushers, in-depth articles on sled dog nutrition, and stunning photography that will transport you to the heart of the action. So whether you're dreaming of competing in the Iditarod or simply want to learn more about this incredible sport, Mushing is your go-to resource. Subscribe now and get ready to unleash your passion for mushing. Visit our website at mushing.com. Find us on your favorite podcast platform. Mushing, where the spirit of adventure meets the power of the pack.